Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to Best Kept Plans. Today's video is going to be taking a look back at my most anticipated books of 2024 to see if I read all of the books that were on my most anticipated list, what I thought about them, what I rated them, and if you're interested in seeing that, please stick around. As I said in my introduction, this video is going to be looking at all of the books that I put on my most anticipated list for 2024. At the end of 2023, I actually filmed a video talking about all of my most anticipated releases for the year. That's the first time I've ever done a video like that. I'm actually not even intending on doing a video like that for 2025. But I thought it would be really interesting a year later to take a look at those books and see if I read them, what I thought about them. Now, I'm gonna be going through these books in the order that I went through them in that video, and I actually have my laptop here just to look at some of the details and my Goodreads for my ratings. The first book that we're going to be talking about is the third book in a series, and that is The Atlas Complex by Olivie Blake. I was so looking forward to this book because I loved the first two books in the Atlas series. This was going to conclude the series, and I was very interested in seeing how Olivie Blake was going to wrap everything up that had been going on in the first two books in the series. I will say this was such a wonderful read for me. I really loved the decisions that Blake made. There were definitely some shocking moments, some sad moments throughout this book, but I do think that she did justice by all of the characters, and I really like where everything kind of ended up. This was my first 5-star read of the year. Definitely a great one, and glad I included this on my most anticipated list. The next book on my most anticipated list was Magnolia Parks Into the Dark by Jessa Hastings. This is the final Magnolia and BJ book in the Magnolia Parks universe. Our main character is going through some very heavy things, some very difficult things, and it was very nice to see BJ and the growth and the development that his character had in this book in order to be supportive of Magnolia. I think that was, for me, the biggest thing about it. I didn't love this book as much as I did the last Magnolia and BJ book, so I ended up giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars. So glad that I put it on my most anticipated list. The next book on my most anticipated list is one that came out much earlier in 2024, but I actually just read it in December, and that is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsah Faizal. This is a young adult fantasy. I was highly intrigued by the cover of this. I think the cover is absolutely stunning, and I did read the synopsis when I heard about it and was very intrigued by the synopsis as well. This book definitely did not disappoint. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I ended up giving it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Never read anything by this author before, and I do believe this is becoming a series, and I'm very excited to read the next book in the series whenever it releases. The next book that we're going to talk about is one that I was fortunate enough to receive a review copy of, and I was super excited about it because I actually received this review copy a couple of days before my birthday, and so I spent my entire birthday, March 1st, reading Swift and Saddled by Lyla Sage. While I did really enjoy this, I didn't like it as much as I was expecting to like it. So I did, again, really enjoy this. I believe I gave this a 4 out of 5. I rated Done and Dusted a 4.5 out of 5. So again, not my favorite in the series at this point, but still a very enjoyable read, and glad I included it on my most anticipated list. Next, we have Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in the Rose Hill series. This is a new series from Elsie Silver. I was super excited to give this a read, and it did not disappoint. I really enjoyed the journal entries that we get throughout this book that help us to understand the history between these characters. And I ended up rating this 4.5 out of 5 stars, really liked it. And again, another one that I'm so glad I put on my most anticipated list. Next, we have a book that I was super, super excited for, but actually waited a little while to read. And that is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I read most of this sitting on a beach, which was great. I loved this story. Abby Jimenez just does it so perfectly. It was a beautiful story and I loved it, and I rated it 5 out of 5 stars, and I will basically read anything that Abby Jimenez writes. The next book on my most anticipated list was The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. I don't physically have it right now because I'm letting someone borrow my copy. I ended up not loving this one as much as I was hoping to. This is a second chance romance, and I think I just needed more of what their relationship had been like originally and what has changed that's going to allow their second chance romance to be successful. So I did give this 4 out of 5 stars. It still has all of the things that I love about a Sarah Adams romance. The next book that was on my most anticipated list is the first one that I didn't actually read. And that is not because I didn't want to or didn't get to it. It's actually because the release date was changed. And that book is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandanna. I'm very much looking forward to it still, so it's definitely an anticipated release for me for 2025, but that is why I did not read it in 2024. The next book that was on my most anticipated list was Funny Story by Emily Henry. I did not read this when it first came out, and I heard overall very, very positive reviews on it. Unfortunately, for some reason, this one just didn't quite hit for me the way I was anticipating it was going to. I was really, really hoping for my first 5-star read from Emily Henry. I've never rated any of her books 5 stars, though I did read Beach Read before I started rating books, and I always say that I do suspect that's a 5-star read, and I actually want to reread it at some point just to see if that's true or not. It ended up being a 4-star read, still very, very good, and so glad that I put it on my most anticipated list. After Funny Story, we have Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. I am also letting someone borrow this book, so I don't have it physically. I know a lot of people were not huge fans of this book, but I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was so much fun. There was a fake marriage situation going on, and I am a sucker for fake dating and have now realized that I could also be a sucker for fake marriage. I will say that I did feel that the ending of this book was rushed. And that was my biggest issue with it. And because of that, I did rate it 4.5 out of 5 stars. But again, still really, really enjoyed it. And so glad that I put it on my most anticipated list. The next book we're talking about is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I love Ali Hazelwood's writing. I always eat her stories up. And I ended up rating this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book we're going to talk about is the Rom-Commers by Katherine Center. I thought this story was great. I actually initially rated it 5 stars, but I will say with more time, I felt like it really feels more like a 4.5 out of 5-star read to me. And so I did end up changing my rating to 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book on my most anticipated list was Breaking the Dark by Lisa Jewell. I really, really love Jessica Jones. She is one of my favorite Marvel superheroes, and this book is actually about her. And I was really, really excited to get a book about Jessica Jones, but I was even more excited that Lisa Jewell was writing it because I really did feel like she had the ability to do the character justice. I think that Lisa Jewell writes very complex characters. She has the ability to write unlikable characters, but make you feel for them. And I just wish those talents had been utilized a little bit more in the characterization of Jessica Jones in this book, because she's a very complicated character. She can be seen as an unlikable character. She has demons and challenging and difficult and scary issues that she's going through. And I just don't think enough attention was paid to them in this story, which is where I really, really struggled with it. I ended up giving this 3.5 out of 5 stars. I'm not upset that I read it. I'm glad that I read it. I just wanted a little bit more from it. The next book on my most anticipated list was Daydream by Hannah Grace. I actually just read this book in December. This one's definitely a little bit different than the other two books in the Maple Hill series. I personally don't need a third act conflict. Majority of the time, I feel like the third act conflict can kind of break a story for me. And so this one, not leaning into that very heavily and really focusing more on our characters and then building a relationship together was great. I loved these characters. I related to these characters, both of them actually. And I'm just so happy that I finally ended up picking this up in December. And I ended up rating this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Now, the last book that was on my most anticipated list for 2024 was actually Heartstopper Volume 6. It did not come out in 2024. I'm fingers crossed, hoping that it comes out in 2025 because I am desperate for more Heartstopper, even though it is going to be the last volume in the series. And so, of all of my 2024 most anticipated books, I read every single one of them that I put on my list that came out in 2024, which is very, very exciting. Again, I'm not planning on filming a 2025 version of that video, but I will say that I am very much looking forward to the second book in the A Tempest of Tea series. I'm looking forward to the last book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, which is Wild and Wrangled. I'm looking forward to the next book in the Rose Hill series, which is going to be Wild Side, I believe. I'm looking forward to Abby Jimenez's next release, Emily Henry's next release, Allie Hazelwood's next release, Katherine Center's next release. Those I feel are all auto-buy, auto-read authors for me now. I am looking forward to the next book in the Maple Hill series, though I haven't really heard anything about it, so I'm not sure that there is a plan for that to come out in 2025. I actually have a physical arc of Sarah Adams' new book, Beck Borrower's Steel, which I'm very, very much looking forward to reading in 2025. Yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing what comes in terms of 2025 releases. And that is going to be it for this video. I hope that you all enjoyed this look at my most anticipated releases for 2024 and how the books on that list ended up shaking out. I do feel that looking through these books and reflecting back on these books now, that I have a very good idea of what my taste is, particularly when it comes to romance, because I rated all of these books pretty high, and that's very exciting. It's exciting to feel like I'm getting a better idea of what my own tastes are. If you have any questions or comments about the books that I read and talked about in this video, I love chatting with people about books, so do not hesitate to put a comment down below. And as always, everyone, please be safe. Bye-bye.